A bark tore through the morning rush. Echo lunged forward, leash straining, eyes locked on a woman in a gray trench coat. "Echo, heel!" Detective Liora Hayes gripped hard, trying to pull him back. But the dog didn't yield. His gaze wasn't on the woman. It was fixed on the small girl beside her. A little girl, thin, dark-skinned, eyes bright, shining through fear like glass under fire. She wasn't crying. She wasn't calling for help. Her hand trembled once, then tapped 5 times against the woman's sleeve. Tap, 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 tap. Liora froze. The station kept moving. Footsteps, voices, the echo of a departing train. To everyone else, it was a normal morning. To Echo, it was a signal, and before the day was over, that signal would uncover something no one was ready to see. Before we begin, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your country in the comments because this story, you're about to feel it. Now, let's begin. Rain hammered against the glass roof of Ravenport Central, turning every light into a smear of gold and blue. The platform was half empty, just echoes, a coffee cup rolling, a faint hum from the vending machines. Then chaos ripped through the quiet, a flash of motion, fur and fury. The K9 unit Echo lunged forward, his bark slicing through the air like a blade. A woman shrieked, stumbling backward as the dog's teeth caught the sleeve of her gray coat. Beside her, a little black girl froze, barefoot, thin, with eyes that burned like candlelight in the storm. "Echo! Heel!" Detective Liora Hayes grabbed the leash, jerking the dog back with both hands. Echo resisted for a heartbeat, muscles coiled, tail rigid, a growl buried deep in his chest. The woman gasped, clutching the child's arm. He just attacked me!" Leora's tone was calm but sharp. He doesn't attack without reason. Her badge glinted in the neon reflection as she stepped between them. For a moment, the world shrank to the sound of rain tapping metal, the hiss of the train brakes, and the girl's shallow breaths. The child didn't cry. She only looked at the dog, then at Liora, with a gaze that said more than any scream could. Then the overhead voice broke the silence. "Train 904 to southbound, departing in 10 minutes. The tension bled back into the crowd. Passengers moved again. A false sense of normal returned. The woman shook her head, muttering about crazy police dogs, and led the girl away toward the ticket gates. Liora watched them disappear into the blur of umbrellas. Echo sat at her side, soaked, still trembling with focus. "What was that about, boy?" Liora whispered. She had learned long ago to trust that look, the one that meant something was wrong even when protocol said otherwise. They resumed their patrol. The echo of footsteps followed them through the concourse, where rainwater pooled on marble floors and fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Leora's reflection moved beside Echo's, 2 shadows in blue uniforms crossing the sleepless city's heart. She tried to shake the image of the girl's face. It wasn't just fear. It was coded, measured, controlled, the kind of silence that hides a message. When they reached the central atrium, the same pair reappeared ahead, woman in gray, child in a worn yellow jacket. The girl trailed a half-step behind, her small fingers gripping the edge of her sleeve. The woman never looked back. Echo slowed. His ears flicked. His nostrils flared. "Easy," Liora murmured, sensing it again, something electric in the air, like static before a lightning strike. Then she saw it. 5 quick taps. Pause. 5 again. The girl's hand beat softly against the fabric of her coat, barely visible, deliberate. Liora blinked. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" she whispered under her breath. Echo's low growl rumbled, a sound she knew too well. Not aggression, recognition. The child looked up suddenly, eyes wide, and for a fraction of a second her lips moved. Liora couldn't hear the words, but she didn't need to. Echo had already answered with another growl, steady and certain, as if he understood. The woman turned sharply, pulling the child closer, and vanished into the flow of travelers. Liora crouched, running a hand along Echo's damp fur. "You saw it too, didn't you?" The German shepherd stared toward the exit, ears high, body tense. Rain thundered harder outside. Leora's radio crackled with routine chatter, but her mind was elsewhere, counting the rhythm she'd just seen. 5 beats. A pause. 5 more. Not random. Not innocent. What if that rhythm wasn't just a habit, she thought, but a code? A cry for help no one else could hear, and somewhere in the crowd, that rhythm had just started again. The rain hadn't stopped. It fell harder now, hammering the roof like 1,000 ticking clocks counting down to something unseen. The smell of metal, oil, and damp paper filled the air. Ravenport Station never truly slept. It just waited, holding its breath between departures. Detective Liora Hayes moved along the corridor, her boots leaving dark prints on the floor. Echo walked beside her, tail low, steps careful. The radio on her shoulder whispered static and small talk from dispatch. Nothing about what her gut already knew. Something was wrong. Through the glass wall, she caught sight of the woman in gray again. The same one Echo had gone for earlier. The woman stood near a vending machine, pretending to read the list of drinks. The little girl, Luna, Liora heard her name when the woman barked it, stood a few feet away, her small frame trembling under the fluorescent hum. Liora stopped, half in shadow. Echo sat instantly, silent but alert. His eyes were fixed on the child, ears twitching with precision. Then it happened again. 5 taps. A pause. 5 more. This time against the side of the machine, rhythm steady like Morse. The sound drowned in the noise of the station, but Echo heard. His tail stiffened. A soft growl vibrated in his chest, deep and deliberate. Leora's throat went dry. That wasn't random. It wasn't a fidget. It was a message, measured, practiced, desperate. She remembered the training manuals, signals used by victims to communicate silently, 5 taps to mimic SOS. Most people missed it. Most never looked long enough. Echo, she whispered. Stay. The dog froze, eyes locked forward. Liora moved, blending with the shifting crowd, letting distance hide her observation. She adjusted her cap and stepped closer to the reflection in the glass. The woman's hand rested possessively on the girl's shoulder. The grip was too tight. The smile she wore was too forced. Ma'am, Liora called softly as she approached, tone polite, professional. Evening. You two all right? The woman turned, her expression painted with surprise and irritation. We're fine, officer. Just waiting for our train. Her voice was smooth, too smooth. Her eyes flicked briefly to the badge, then back to Leora's face. Mind if I ask where you're headed? Upstate, she said quickly. Family visit. Liora nodded slowly. Long trip for a rainy night. The girl didn't look up. Her small fingers clutched the strap of her stuffed toy, knuckles pale. Echo took one slow step forward. His nose lifted, catching a scent only he could trace. Fear, adrenaline, something metallic. Liora felt the leash tighten in her hand. Pretty late for kids to be traveling, Liora said quietly. The woman's lips tightened. We don't need your permission, detective. The tone wasn't defiant. It was defensive. And that was enough to make Leora's instincts flare. Echo growled again, the sound low, controlled, a warning rather than threat. The girl flinched, but not from fear of the dog. It was the woman's hand that made her freeze. Then, almost imperceptibly, Luna lifted her sleeve and tapped again. 5. Pause. 5. Leora's pulse quickened. She caught the rhythm this time, saw the meaning. The girl's eyes darted toward the exit. Then back to Liora, silent, pleading. The detective straightened. Echo, she said softly. Stay close. The woman laughed awkwardly. Honestly, officer, you're making her nervous. Liora tilted her head slightly. Funny, she said, her tone steady. She doesn't look nervous. She looks like she wants to say something. The crowd shifted around them, footsteps echoing against tile. For a brief second, the entire station felt still, like the city itself was listening. Echo's gaze never moved. The leash trembled in Leora's hand. She counted again, barely breathing. 5. Pause. 5. Not a coincidence. Something hidden was unfolding under the rain-soaked lights of Ravenport. And Liora Hayes knew she had just stepped into it. The storm outside turned the station windows into mirrors, shifting lights, distorted faces, everything uncertain. Detective Liora Hayes stood beneath the flickering sign that read, Platform C, one hand on Echo's leash, the other brushing rain from her jacket. The air smelled of steel and coffee, but underneath it all was something sour. Fear. The woman in gray, now confirmed as Ivy Rowe on the ticket manifest, was moving again. Calm, deliberate, like a person rehearsing normal, Luna walked beside her, small hand swallowed in Ivy's grip. Liora followed at a measured distance, blending with the late-night crowd. Echo padded silently beside her, every muscle poised, eyes locked forward. Unit 12, Liora murmured into her radio. Possible abduction, female suspect, child victim, platform level. Static. Then a faint voice. Copy. Backup ETA 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That was too long. Ivy's reflection flickered in the glass wall as she leaned toward the girl. The words were soft, but the tone wasn't gentle. It was sharp, warning. Luna nodded quickly, eyes glistening. Echo stopped. His ears twitched once, twice, then locked on something beyond the human range. He let out a low hum, barely audible, more vibration than sound. Liora knew that tone. It meant he smelled adrenaline. It meant danger was about to move. Hold, she whispered. But Ivy was already adjusting course. Instead of heading toward the main concourse, she turned down a narrower hallway, the kind meant for staff, dimly lit, lined with service doors and vending machines. The kind of place people disappeared in. Leora's pulse jumped. Dispatch, she's moving south exit. Repeat, south exit, no response. The radio fizzed with static. The walls here killed the signal. Great, she muttered. They followed quietly. Echo's paws barely made a sound against the concrete. Each step deeper made the air colder. The hallway lights flickered in rhythmic pulses, almost mimicking that same 5-beat pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A pause, then again. It made Leora's skin crawl. Ahead, Ivy stopped at a maintenance door, pretending to check her ticket. But her hand trembled. The keys she pulled from her pocket weren't station keys, they were car keys. A private exit. Leora's voice cut through the hum. Evening, ma'am? Ivy froze. Liora stepped closer, keeping her hands visible, posture calm but commanding. I'm Detective Hayes, Ravenport K9 unit. Mind telling me why you're headed to a restricted zone? The woman turned slowly, her face a portrait of strained composure. I told you, Detective. We're catching a train. Then you're on the wrong platform, Liora said evenly. That door leads to service roads. A flicker, just a flicker of panic crossed Ivy's eyes. Then came the smile, too fast to be real. You must be mistaken. Behind her, Luna shifted her weight. Her sleeve slipped, revealing bruises along her wrist, faint, but enough. Leora's throat tightened. Echo took a step forward, growl low and building. Easy, Liora whispered. But the growl didn't stop. It rolled through the hallway like distant thunder. Ivy's mask cracked. You need to control your animal, she snapped, taking a step back toward the door. That's not an animal, Liora said softly. That's the only one here who knows the truth. For a second, no one moved. Then Luna tapped again, 5 faint beats against her own thigh. Echo barked once, sharp and precise. Liora reached for her badge. Step away from the door, Ms. Rowe. The woman hesitated, eyes darting between Liora, the dog, and the narrow escape behind her. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Inside, the truth was about to break open. The hallway felt narrower now, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering in nervous rhythm. Detective Liora Hayes stood steady, one hand raised, the other gripping Echo's leash. The woman in gray, Ivy Rowe, didn't blink. Her eyes darted to the maintenance door, then back to the detective. Ms. Rowe, Liora said softly. Step away from the door. A pause. Just rain against metal. Then a quiet voice, barely a whisper. she said. "We were going home." Leora's gaze snapped to the girl, Luna, her small voice trembling like the air around them. Echo's ears pricked forward. "That true?" Liora asked, her tone gentler now. "You two heading home?" But Luna didn't answer. Her tiny hands were shaking, pressed against her jacket. Then tap, 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 tap. A pause, then 5 more. Echo stiffened, his fur bristling. His growl rolled through the space, low and pulsing, matching the pattern. Leora's pulse synced with it, each thud in her chest counting the code. 5. Pause. 5. "Luna," she whispered, stepping forward. "You're safe, okay? You can—" Ivy cut her off. "She doesn't need to talk to you?" Her voice cracked. "We're leaving." She grabbed the girl's arm and pulled. Liora moved instantly. "Echo!" The German shepherd lunged, not to bite but to block. His body became a wall of muscle and instinct. Ivy froze, startled, her bag slipping from her shoulder. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed through the corridor. "Let go of her, Ivy," Liora ordered. Her voice carried authority now, firm, controlled, but burning underneath. "That's not your child." The woman's mask cracked again. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then explain the code," Liora shot back. 5 and 5. "You think I didn't see it?" For a moment, silence. Then Ivy made her move. She shoved the girl toward Liora and bolted for the door. "Echo, go!" The leash dropped. The dog sprang forward, claws scraping concrete. The chase erupted into chaos, Liora sprinting behind, radio bouncing at her shoulder, static spilling words that no one heard. The hallway blurred, light, shadow, rain leaking through cracked windows. Ivy's footsteps pounded ahead, echoing like drumbeats through the corridor. She hit the emergency exit, burst into the rain-soaked service road outside. Headlights flared from distant streets, washing everything in cold white. "Stop!" Liora shouted. "Ravenport police." The woman didn't stop. She cut across the puddled pavement, shoes slipping, hair plastered to her face. Echo closed the distance, faster, lower, unstoppable. She turned once, saw the dog, panicked, and stumbled. Her bag tore open as it hit the ground. Papers scattered in the rain, sticking to the asphalt. A flash of something metallic, then photographs. Children, different faces, same frightened eyes. Liora caught up, grabbing Ivy's arm, twisting it behind her. "You just made it worse," she hissed. "I was protecting her." Ivy screamed, voice breaking under the storm. "You don't understand!" "Then explain those photos!" Leora's voice cut through the downpour. "Who are the others?" No answer. Just rain and the sound of Echo growling beside them. The photos flapped against the wet ground like dying birds. Luna stood at the doorway, drenched, trembling, her lips moving silently. Echo turned toward her. For a second, time froze. The dog's eyes locked on the girl's. She tapped again. 5. Pause. 5. Liora felt the meaning slam into her like lightning. This wasn't over. Ivy wasn't alone. She looked up at the dark street stretching beyond the station gates, headlights disappearing into the storm. Who were the other children? The rain hadn't let up. It fell in thin silver lines across the police floodlights, turning the service road into a mirror of flashing red and blue. The smell of wet concrete mixed with engine oil and adrenaline. Detective Liora Hayes stood under the awning outside the station's security annex, coat dripping, eyes fixed on the suspect sitting inside the patrol car. Ivy Rowe looked nothing like a monster. Her hair clung to her face, her wrists cuffed, her expression oddly calm, as if she'd simply missed her train. Liora didn't buy it. Beside her, Echo sat still, his fur damp but his focus razor-sharp. He'd stopped growling hours ago, but every so often he'd let out a soft huff, as if reminding everyone the job wasn't done. Inside, the small conference room buzzed with tension. Evidence bags lay on the metal table, scattered photos, forged passports, an unregistered cell phone wrapped in tape. Each item was a piece of something bigger, something that didn't fit the narrative of a lone abductor. Liora leaned against the doorframe, watching Ivy through the glass. The woman's reflection doubled under the fluorescent glare. 2 faces. both unreadable. "Tell me something," Liora said finally, stepping inside. "Why carry IDs with 6 different names if you're just a mother taking her child home?" Ivy didn't look up. "Because sometimes mothers need to hide." "Hide from who?" No answer, just the rhythmic tap of Ivy's finger against the table. Not nervous, measured. Liora counted it automatically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a pause. Then 5 again, her stomach tightened. "You think that's funny?" Ivy's eyes lifted slowly. "You think you stopped something?" Her voice was low, almost tender. "You only paused it." The room went silent. Echo stirred near the doorway, ears twitching. His gaze wasn't on Ivy, but on the evidence bag nearest her. The one holding the taped phone. Liora crouched, signaling the handler instinctively. "What is it, boy?" The German shepherd's nose pressed toward the bag. He whined softly, tail stiff. The detective opened it carefully. The phone was cheap, scratched, and sealed with layers of electrical tape. She peeled one edge back. No SIM card, just a small slip of paper folded inside the casing. On it, a list of train numbers. Each one paired with a time, a symbol, and a city code. "Jesus," she muttered. "This isn't a contact list, it's a schedule." Her partner, Officer Deacon, frowned. "Schedule for what?" Leora's voice was quiet, steady. "For shipments." She spread the note across the table, eyes scanning the patterns. RVP 407, 6:15 a.m. East Line 903, Union 705. Each train Ivy had passed through in the past month. Each with a matching missing child report. Across the table, Ivy smiled faintly. "You're clever, Detective Hayes, but clever won't save them." Leora's jaw tightened. "Them?" Ivy leaned back, her cuffs clinking softly. "There are always more trains," Echo barked once, sharp, startling. The sound echoed off the metal walls, silencing everyone. He moved toward the observation glass, staring at the reflection of another room, the one where Luna slept under a blanket. A paper cup of cocoa cooling beside her. The dog whined, ears lowering as if sensing something unseen. Liora followed his gaze. The child shifted restlessly in her sleep, one small hand twitching. 5 taps. Pause. 5 more. Leora's breath caught. Even in dreams, the code lived on, burned into the muscle memory of fear. She looked back at Ivy, whose smile had already faded. "Whatever network you're part of," Liora said quietly. "I'll find it." Ivy's eyes gleamed in the fluorescent light. "Then you'd better start running. Because the next train leaves in less than an hour." Outside, thunder rolled. Beneath it, faintly, came the distant rumble of another arriving train. What if the tracks beneath this city weren't built for trains, but for secrets? Detective Liora Hayes stepped out of the interrogation room with Ivy Rowe's final words echoing in her mind. The next train leaves in less than an hour. The hallway smelled of damp paper and stale coffee. Rain still tapped against the station windows like a relentless metronome. Echo walked beside her, silent but restless. Each flash of lightning outside reflected off his amber eyes. "Talk to me, boy," she whispered. "What am I missing?" Echo didn't bark. He just turned toward the platform, ears pricking at the low, rhythmic thunder of an arriving train. Liora followed his gaze. The sound wasn't just the usual rumble, it came in a pattern. 5 beats. Pause. 5 again. Her stomach clenched. "You've got to be kidding me." She hurried into the tech office, where Officer Deacon was hunched over Ivy's confiscated phone, wires and monitors glowing in the dim light. "Tell me you found something," she said. He nodded. "You're not going to like it." On the screen, lines of numbers formed a grid, train routes, timestamps, coordinates. But there was another layer, hidden in the metadata. A faint map appeared, the outline of Ravenport's underground system. One line pulsed red. "Line 9. Liora frowned. "That section's been sealed for years." Deacon zoomed in. "Not sealed enough. That line's still drawing power. Look at the timestamp." Leora's eyes widened. 43 minutes from now." Deacon's voice dropped. "Whatever this is, it's happening there." Liora grabbed her jacket. "Patch me through to dispatch." "I'm heading underground. You're going alone?" She glanced down at Echo, who was already standing by the door, tail stiff, ready. "Not exactly." The entrance to Line 9 was behind a rusted gate beneath the east terminal. Few officers even remembered it existed. The stairs descended into stale air, thick with dust and dripping condensation. Every footstep echoed for miles. Liora switched on her flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating graffiti, cracked tiles, and an old poster that read, "Ravenport Line 9, the fastest way downtown." Echo moved ahead, nose low to the ground. His paws splashed in shallow puddles. The faint hum of old electricity buzzed through the walls. Then he stopped. "What is it?" Liora whispered. Echo sniffed the air, then barked once, short, urgent. He led her toward a rusted maintenance door hanging half open. On the floor just inside, she saw it. A small footprint, half dried in the grime, beside an overturned carton of milk. "Children," she muttered. "They were here." The detective's chest tightened. Her flashlight trembled slightly as she swept the beam over the floor. Discarded blankets, snack wrappers, a doll missing one arm. She crouched, running a finger along a shoe print barely larger than her thumb. "They've been moving through here," Echo whined softly, tail stiff. He turned toward the tunnel beyond the door, pitch black, stretching endlessly under the city. "Wait," Liora murmured. Listen. The rain outside had faded. The station above felt miles away. In that silence, she heard something faint. So faint she thought it might be her imagination. Tap, 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 tap. A pause. Tap, 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 tap. Her breath caught. She swung the flashlight toward the noise, but it wasn't coming from the tunnel. It was resonating through the metal pipes along the wall, traveling like a heartbeat through steel. Echo barked again, louder this time. Eyes locked on the darkness ahead, someone, or something, was answering. Liora gripped her radio. "This is Hayes. I've got movement in line 9, and it's using the signal." Static hissed back at her. No response. Echo took a step forward, growl low, echoing through the tunnel's ribs. "What if someone was answering back?" she whispered. Then the lights overhead flickered once and went out. Darkness swallowed the tunnel whole. The flicker of Liora's flashlight became the only heartbeat left in the void. The beam cut through hanging dust and mist, revealing fractured tiles and rusted tracks vanishing into blackness. "Echo," she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. The dog's outline moved ahead, low and deliberate. His vest glimmered faintly in the weak light, each tag clinking softly like a warning bell. The air smelled of mildew and iron. Something deeper, a hint of engine oil and old smoke, lingered like a ghost. Liora swept the flashlight across the walls. Faded graffiti spelled half-words. "Help! Keep alive!" Letters lost to time. Every echo returned slower than it should have, like the tunnel itself was holding its breath. She tapped her radio. "Dispatch, this is Detective Hayes. I'm in line 9, section D, powers out. Visibility's near 0. Static." No voice answered. She exhaled. "Copy that," she murmured to herself. Echo stopped suddenly. His body went rigid, head tilted. His tail dropped, his nostrils flaring. Then he looked back at her, eyes glowing faint amber. "What is it, boy?" A sound answered for him. 5 metallic knocks, sharp, hollow, echoing through the pipes that lined the ceiling. Tap, 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 pause. Then again. Liora froze. It wasn't random. It came from the left tunnel, the one marked service line, restricted. "Someone's down here," she whispered. Echo whined softly. The sound caught between fear and purpose. He stepped forward, paws splashing through puddles. Liora followed, sweeping the flashlight toward the sound. The beam landed on the remnants of a camp, an overturned crate, empty food wrappers, a child's shoe with faded pink laces. She crouched, running a gloved hand across the debris. "They were here," she murmured. "Recently." Echo sniffed the air, then gave a low growl. He turned his head toward the deeper passage, where the air vibrated with a faint hum. Liora listened closer. Beneath the dripping water and distant thunder, she heard something new, the roll of wheels on metal, slow, mechanical, like a cart being pushed. She rose slowly. "We're not alone." They followed the sound deeper. The tunnel sloped downward, walls tightening, the smell of diesel thickening. When the flashlight flickered again, the darkness seemed to pulse back, alive and aware. Then the hum grew louder. Voices. Muffled, male, hurried. Liora killed the light and pressed against the wall. Echo crouched low beside her, silent, his breathing measured. Two silhouettes emerged ahead, men in dark jackets, reflective tape faint under the flicker of a distant bulb. They were pushing a dolly stacked with metal crates. Each box was marked with a number and a single letter. C-17, D-12, E-04. Her stomach twisted. "They're using cargo codes," she whispered. One man spoke, his voice bouncing off the walls. "Next load leaves at 0200. The rest stay in the holding room until clearance." Leora's pulse quickened. Holding room. She shifted her stance, bringing the flashlight back up. "The beam cut across the tunnel, landing on them. Police!" she shouted. "Hands where I can see them." The first man froze. The second bolted. The echo of boots splashing on concrete thundered through the tunnel. Echo lunged forward, barking, the sound exploding like gunfire. Liora gave chase, flashlight swinging wildly through the dark. Shadows twisted and broke as they turned corners. The fleeing man dropped something, a key card, and disappeared into another passage. Echo stopped at the fork, growling toward the direction he'd gone. Liora picked up the card, breath heavy, reading the faded print. Ravenport Maintenance Access, Section E. She looked into the black ahead. The air was colder there, deeper. Waiting, she tightened her grip on the flashlight. "Sometimes justice doesn't echo back," she whispered. "It waits in the dark." And she stepped forward. The access door beeped once before unlocking, its green light flickering weakly in the dark. Detective Liora Hayes slid the stolen key card through again, holding her breath. The latch released with a metallic click that sounded far too loud for the silence around her. "Echo," she whispered. The dog moved first, pushing the door open with his shoulder. The corridor beyond glowed faintly orange, lit by emergency lights that buzzed like trapped flies. The air was different here, warmer, recycled, tinged with the copper scent of machines that shouldn't still be running. They stepped inside. The walls were lined with metal panels, each labeled with faded numbers and inspection stickers years out of date. Pipes hissed softly overhead. The hum of old ventilation filled the space like a distant heartbeat. Echo's nose twitched. He moved left, toward a steel door with a narrow glass slit. Through it, Liora saw something that made her stomach tighten, rows of cots. Some still had blankets folded neatly. Others were left in disarray. On the floor, scattered toys, half-empty water bottles, and the faint imprint of small hands against the dusty walls. She pushed the door open slowly. The hinges groaned in protest. The smell hit her first, disinfectant overlaid with something sour, like old fear. She moved between the cots, flashlight tracing every forgotten corner. A notebook lay on one bed. Inside, crude drawings, houses, trees, smiling stick figures. Underneath, shaky handwriting repeated one phrase over and over. "Train home soon." Her throat closed. Echo gave a low whine, tail stiff, head angled toward the far end of the room. A door stood half open there, light flickering through it. Liora followed the sound of faint static and stepped into a smaller chamber. Desks, screens, cables snaking across the floor. It looked like a control hub stripped in a hurry. One monitor still glowed, looping silent footage from security cameras, different train stations, different faces. Children waiting with strangers. Each frame time-stamped, logged, sorted. "Oh my God," she breathed. Her hand hovered over the keyboard. The cursor blinked over a label at the bottom corner of the feed. Distribution Node, Ravenport Central. It wasn't just a holding room. It was a transfer point. Before she could process it, a voice came from the shadows. "You weren't supposed to find this." Liora spun, flashlight slicing through the darkness. A man stood by the exit, half hidden beneath a hooded jacket, a pistol at his side. His badge read security contractor, but the logo was scrubbed out. "Police," she said firmly. "Drop the weapon," he smirked. You think this is about one kid? Echo growled, the sound deep and primal. The man stepped back toward the control panel, hand moving to a red switch. Don't, Liora warned. He flipped it. Sparks erupted from the monitors, screens going black one by one. Echo lunged. The gun went off, loud, deafening, but the bullet hit the ceiling. The man fell hard. Echo's jaws locked on his arm. Liora rushed forward, kicking the gun away. Stay down, she barked. The man cursed, blood running down his sleeve. You can't stop it, he spat. The shipments keep moving. You shut one gate, 10 more open. Liora grabbed the flash drive dangling from his neck, still warm from his skin. We'll see. She turned back toward the dead monitors. Smoke rose from the burnt circuits, curling like ghosts in the low light. Echo released his grip, panting hard, eyes still locked on the man. Liora pocketed the drive, voice low and steady. Some truths aren't buried underground, she said. They're built here. Echo nudged her leg, ears flicking toward the tunnel beyond. They weren't alone anymore. Dawn bled slowly through the city skyline when Detective Liora Hayes stepped back into the Ravenport precinct. The rain had stopped, but the world still felt soaked in something heavier. Silence. Her coat was torn, her boots streaked with dust from the tunnels below. In her hand, sealed inside a plastic evidence bag, was the one thing that could expose everything: the stolen flash drive. The bullpen was quiet. Too quiet. Officers typed without looking up. Conversations stopped mid-sentence when she passed. Liora frowned. Since when is everyone in this place allergic to eye contact? Echo walked beside her, fur still damp, nails clicking softly on the tile. He stopped suddenly near the front desk, ears tilting toward the glass office above. Through it, Chief Darrow was waiting. Liora took a steadying breath. All right, buddy. Showtime. Inside the office, the blinds were half closed, slicing the morning light into sharp, uneven lines. Chief Darrow sat behind his desk, expression unreadable. 2 men in suits stood behind him. No badges, no insignia. Federal or something pretending to be. Detective Hayes, Darrow began, voice smooth. You've had quite a night. Liora placed the evidence bag on the table. This drive holds everything: footage, routes, identities. There's a whole network under this city moving kids through the train lines. Darrow exchanged a glance with the men behind him. One of them stepped forward, holding out a hand. We'll take it from here. Liora didn't move. Not happening. Chain of custody runs through me. The man's smile was thin. It's a federal matter now, Echo growled, low, restrained, but clear. Leora's pulse quickened. She turned toward the tech desk near the wall. Run the data before they walk out with it, she said. The tech officer plugged the drive in. The screen flickered. Lines of code flashed and then vanished. A warning window appeared. Data purge initiated. No, stop it! The tech shouted, slamming keys. But the progress bar hit 100%. The drive went dead. Leora's heart sank. How is that possible? The man in the suit adjusted his cufflinks. Looks like your evidence wasn't as secure as you thought. She turned sharply toward Darrow. You let them near the network. You knew this would happen. Darrow's tone turned icy. Watch yourself, detective. You're overstepping. Overstepping? She stepped closer, eyes burning. I found a trafficking route under a federal transit system, and now the proof magically erases itself? You call that coincidence? Darrow stood, voice rising. You're exhausted. You've been underground all night. Take a few days off. That's an order? That's a necessity, he said flatly. Until further notice, your investigation is suspended. The room went dead quiet. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade. Liora stared at him, disbelief curdling into fury. You're protecting someone! The older man didn't flinch. You're dismissed, detective, Echo barked once, sharp enough to make both suited men step back. Liora turned away before her temper broke completely. She grabbed the empty evidence bag and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused. You can shut me down, she said quietly. But you can't silence what that girl went through. No one answered. She stepped out into the corridor. The bullpen eyes followed again, hushed, afraid. Echo padded beside her, tail low, shoulders tense. Halfway down the hall, he stopped. His ears twitched toward the stairwell. Liora turned just in time to see a man standing there in shadow, watching her. No uniform, no badge. Just a faint smile and a clipboard tucked under his arm. He vanished when she blinked. Echo let out a single low growl that rumbled like a warning. Liora looked back at the frosted glass office door, where Chief Darrow's silhouette still loomed behind blinds. Sometimes corruption doesn't hide in shadows, she muttered. It signs your paycheck. And she kept walking. Midnight pressed against the windows of Liora Hayes' apartment, turning the glass into mirrors of rain and city light. The hum of traffic below felt distant, almost ghostly, like the world had moved on without her. She sat at her kitchen table, badge and sidearm laid out beside a cold cup of coffee. The flash drive that had burned her entire career was gone, but Echo hadn't stopped pacing since they got home. The dog's nails clicked softly against the floor, restless, alert. You feel it too, don't you? She murmured. Echo stopped, ears pricking toward her laptop. The machine flickered to life on its own. Lines of corrupted data filled the screen, fragments of code rebuilding themselves like ghosts finding form. Liora leaned closer. How? Then she saw it. In the center of the screen, buried under damaged files, a single folder blinked back to life. RVP-47 last route, she clicked. A half-rendered map appeared, coastline, train lines, and a cluster of coordinates converging on the north docks of Ravenport. Warehouse 47, her pulse quickened. They're still moving shipments? Echo let out a soft growl, nose brushing the laptop. The speakers hissed suddenly, and then came the sound that froze her blood. Tap, 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 tap. Pause, tap, 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 tap. The 5-beat signal, the same pattern Luna had tapped on her mother's sleeve. But this time, it wasn't a plea for help. It was a broadcast. She watched the timestamp appear on the screen, 1:45 a.m. An hour from now, she whispered. They're moving tonight. She grabbed her phone, scrolling through contacts until she landed on one name she hadn't dialed in years. Keon Wright. The line clicked after 2 rings. Didn't think I'd ever hear your voice again, he said, his tone half amusement, half warning. Still got that camera rig you used for the task force? A pause. Liora, whatever you're into, I heard you got benched. You're not supposed to... Warehouse 47. North Docks. Children. Trafficking network. Silence. Then a slow exhale. Damn. You in? You even need to ask? She smiled faintly for the first time in hours. Meet me at Pier Road in 30. Bring the gear. The call ended. Liora moved quickly, packing spare mags, batteries, and the small handheld scanner she'd used on Echo's vest during K9 training. The dog stood still as she reattached his harness, the tag reading, Echo, Unit 17. Rain started again, light but relentless. It beat against the fire escape as she slipped into her jacket. You know this isn't sanctioned, she said softly. Echo tilted his head, eyes steady, unflinching. Yeah, she whispered. Didn't think you'd care. They left the apartment quietly. The city outside was half asleep, steam rising from manholes, neon signs flickering through fog. Leora's car idled by the curb, engine low, headlights off. She drove north through the empty industrial streets. Each passing block seemed to hum with the same rhythm as the code on her screen. The city itself pulsed to the hidden beat of 5. When they reached the docks, Keon was already there, leaning against his unmarked SUV, camera pack slung across his shoulder. He looked older, eyes tired but sharp. Still breaking rules, huh? He said. Liora stepped out, rain glinting off her coat. You ever stop? He grinned faintly. Not since they stopped paying me to care. They looked out across the port. Rows of containers stacked like steel tombs glistened under the sodium lights. Cranes loomed like silent sentinels over the water. Echo stood between them, ears up, staring toward a single warehouse where faint movement shimmered behind the glass. That's it, Liora said. Warehouse 47. Keon adjusted the lens on his camera. How many you think are inside? Enough, she exhaled, steady but trembling beneath it. In a city built on silence, she said, eyes locked on the dark horizon. Justice, has to whisper first. And together, with Echo leading the way, they disappeared into the rain. Rain sheeted across the Ravenport docks, turning the asphalt into a black mirror of sodium light and shadows. The air tasted of salt, rust, and diesel. Each wave slapped against the pier like a heartbeat beneath the storm. Detective Liora Hayes crouched behind a stack of shipping containers, her breath visible in the cold. Beside her, Keon Wright adjusted his camera rig, the lens glinting like a sniper's scope. Echo waited between them, still and coiled, rain sliding off his fur in silver threads. Warehouse 47 stood ahead, an enormous gray block crowned with flickering floodlights. The painted letters RVP Logistics peeled like dead skin across the facade. Keon whispered, "You sure this is it?" Liora nodded. "Coordinates match the route from the file. This is where they moved them. Then let's make it count." They slipped from cover, moving through the maze of crates. Every step echoed against the metal labyrinth. Echo led the way, nose low, tail stiff. When they reached a service door at the back, Liora picked the rusted latch with the calm of someone who'd stopped caring about permission. The door groaned open. Inside, the air was warmer, but wrong. A mixture of bleach, oil, and something faintly sweet like sugar, gone stale. They moved down a narrow corridor lit by trembling fluorescents. Conveyor belts stood motionless, their belts smeared with dust and grease. The sound of humming machinery came from deeper inside, steady, mechanical, like a breath that never ended. Echo stopped suddenly, ears turning toward the far wall. A faint rhythm pulsed beneath the noise. Tap, 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 tap. Pause, tap, 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 tap. Liora froze, her pulse synchronized with it. "They're here." She motioned to Keon, and they followed the sound to a large bay door half open to the warehouse floor. Beyond it stretched a cavernous room filled with stacked containers, some open, some sealed with new padlocks. The space was empty of workers, but still alive with hums and flickers of power. Keon raised his camera, capturing everything. "This is enough to bury them." "Not yet," she said. "We need faces." They crept between the containers. Echo sniffed one stack and began pawing at the side of a sealed unit marked Cargo 12B. Liora pressed her ear against it. Silence. Then the faintest sound. Breathing. Shallow. Rapid. She turned to Keon, whispering, "There's someone inside." He pulled out a pry bar. Together they worked the latch until the metal groaned open. The smell that poured out was damp cloth and fear. Inside were small suitcases, each tagged with initials. Beside them, a crate filled with laminated folders, photos, names, dates, children. "Oh, God," Keon muttered. "They weren't shipping goods. They were shipping identities," Liora said quietly. Before she could take a picture, footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Voices. "Loaders back already?" one man asked. "Schedule moved up," another replied. "We got 40 minutes till the truck arrives." Leora's eyes widened. "They're early." She pulled Keon down behind a stack of crates. Echo crouched low, silent but tense. Two men entered the bay, security jackets, radios, pistols holstered. They walked straight toward the open container. Keon's hand went to his camera. Liora shook her head. "Not yet." One of the men cursed when he saw the broken lock. "Who the hell opened this?" Echo growled softly, the sound almost inaudible under the hum of the lights. Then the second man turned, eyes narrowing toward their hiding spot. "Hey, you hear that?" Liora grabbed Keon and rolled behind another crate as a flashlight beam swept the aisle. "A gun cocked! Come out now!" The shot came a second later, loud, close. The bullet clipped the metal inches above her head. "Go!" she hissed. They sprinted toward the stairwell as Echo leapt forward, knocking the armed man off balance. Keon fired a flashbang camera burst, momentarily blinding the second. They reached the catwalk above, just as shouts erupted below. From there, Liora looked down and froze. Below them, under the dim emergency lights, half a dozen metal cages sat hidden between pallets. Inside them, she saw movement. Small hands, silent faces. "They weren't moving cargo," Liora whispered, voice trembling. They were moving futures. Echo whined low, eyes locked on the children below. Liora gripped the railing, jaw tight. We end this tonight. The alarm tore through the warehouse like a scream of metal. Red lights flashed across the rafters, painting the rain-soaked floor in pulses of blood and shadow. Move! Liora shouted. Echo leapt from the catwalk, landing between the cages with a thud. The children flinched at first, but when he barked once, sharp and commanding, their fear broke into stunned silence. Liora slid down the ladder, gun drawn. Keon followed, camera light cutting through the haze. The lens trembled, recording everything, the cages, the panicked faces, the impossible proof. Keon, record and stay low, she yelled. Got it! Echo's nose went straight to a rusted lock. He bit at it, pawing until Liora reached him. She fired once, the padlock shattered. The cage door swung open. It's okay, she said, voice steady but soft. You're safe now. We're getting you out. Tiny fingers reached for her sleeve. A little girl, maybe 6, eyes wide and hollow. Her hand trembled as she tapped against Liora's arm. 5 quick beats. Pause. 5 again. Liora froze. Another group? The girl nodded. Tears streaked her dirt-stained cheeks. Keon's voice came from behind a stack of crates. Liora, we've got company! Gunfire cracked through the air. Sparks exploded from a metal beam inches from her head. Liora dove behind a container, dragging the girl with her. Echo snarled, sprinting toward the sound. 3 men emerged from the shadows. Heavy boots, flashlights, pistols raised. Drop it! One shouted. Liora fired twice. One bullet hit the overhead light, plunging the aisle into strobe-lit chaos. Echo slammed into the nearest attacker, teeth sinking into fabric and flesh. The man went down screaming. Keon crouched behind a crate, camera still rolling. You're insane! He yelled. Just keep that camera up! Smoke filled the air. The chemical haze from the nearby storage line drifted down like gray fog. Liora ripped a flare from her belt, cracked it open, and hurled it toward the leaking barrels. Fire flared instantly, hot, orange, blinding. Go, go, go! She grabbed the girl and motioned for the others. The kids stumbled out of the cages, some barefoot, some too shocked to move. Echo circled them, barking to keep them close. Keon winced, holding his side where a bullet had grazed him. I'm fine, he gasped. Get them out! Leora's earpiece crackled, dead frequency. They were on their own. She led the children toward the loading bay doors. The fire behind them spread fast, licking the walls, turning the steel into molten red veins. Bullets whined past, hitting metal with sharp, angry clanks. Echo turned suddenly, barking toward the corner of the room. Another armed man stepped out, aiming straight for Liora. The dog lunged first. The gun went off. Liora fired back before the Echo even died. The man dropped. Echo limped back, blood on his shoulder, eyes still burning. Easy, buddy. We're almost there, she whispered, pressing a hand to his fur. They burst through the side door just as a second explosion rocked the warehouse. The blast hurled smoke and debris into the rain. Liora shielded the girl, staggering down the steps. Sirens rose in the distance, real ones this time. The first wave of patrol cars screeched to a halt at the docks, lights slicing through the fog. Officers swarmed toward the inferno. Keon stumbled beside her, camera still rolling, face pale but alive. Tell me we got it, he coughed. Liora looked at the footage screen, flickering but intact. We did. Behind them, Warehouse 47 burned, the fire reflecting off the water like molten justice. Liora crouched beside Echo, checking his wound. You did good, she whispered. He pressed his nose into her hand, tail weakly thumping once. Liora lifted the little girl into her arms as the rain came harder, washing the ash from her face. Justice didn't come in sirens that night. It crawled out of the dark, bleeding but alive. The fire at Warehouse 47 burned through the night, a column of smoke twisting into the bruised dawn. Sirens had faded hours ago, but the air still reeked of metal and salt. Seagulls circled the blackened skeleton of the building, crying into the morning fog. Detective Liora Hayes sat on the back step of an ambulance, rain dripping from her hair onto a silver blanket. Her hands were bandaged, her jacket torn. Echo lay beside her, his shoulder wrapped, eyes half closed but alert. Every few seconds, his tail thumped weakly against the pavement, as if reminding her he was still there. Across the dock, paramedics guided the rescued children toward the waiting vans. Some clutched stuffed toys given by volunteers. Others simply stared into nothing. Keon stood near the police line, one arm in a sling, camera still hanging from his neck. "You got it all?" Liora asked hoarsely. He nodded. "Every second. It's already uploading." By noon, the footage was everywhere. Local news, national feeds, endless loops of fire and sirens. The words, "Ravenport child trafficking raid," crawled across every screen. For the first time, the world saw what she'd seen in those tunnels. Cages, tags, faces, but victory came dressed as isolation. At dusk, she was summoned to headquarters. The same halls she'd once walked with pride now echoed like a courthouse. Officers avoided her gaze. Some whispered as she passed. In the briefing room, Chief Darrow waited with internal affairs. A thin folder sat on the table. "Detective Hayes," he began, "effective immediately. You're placed on administrative leave pending review." Leora's jaw tightened. "For what? Saving children?" "For unauthorized use of force, destruction of city property, and endangering civilian lives." She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "You're quoting procedure to cover complicity," one of the investigators cut in. "That's enough, Detective." "No," she said. "It isn't." She reached into her pocket, pulling out a printed still from Keon's footage. A frame of the cages lined beneath the warehouse. She slid it across the table. "That's what we found. What your silence protects." Darrow didn't look at the photo. "People disappear every day," he said quietly. "It's not our job to chase ghosts." Liora leaned forward, voice low. "Maybe that's why they keep disappearing." The room fell silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. When she walked out, an officer stood waiting with a clipboard. "Badge and firearm, Detective." She hesitated, then unclipped both, laying them gently in his hands. The brass gleamed under the hallway light, her reflection fractured in the surface. Outside, the press had already gathered. Microphones, cameras, questions. Liora pushed through the crowd without speaking. Echo padded beside her, bandaged but proud, ignoring the noise. "Detective Hayes, is it true the department's covering it up? Were there more children? Are you being silenced?" The rain had started again, turning the flashes of cameras into bursts of lightning. She kept walking, head down, until a small voice cut through the chaos. "Miss Hayes!" Liora stopped. A child broke through the crowd, a little girl wrapped in a donated blanket, hair still damp from the night before. Luna. She ran straight into Leora's arms. The blanket slipped, revealing the faint bruises on her wrist. Liora knelt, holding her close. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispered. "You okay?" Luna nodded, eyes bright despite the exhaustion. "We heard you," she said softly. "All of us. We heard you." Leora's throat tightened. She brushed the child's hair back, meeting her gaze. "Good," she whispered. "Don't ever stop listening." As reporters shouted and sirens wailed behind them, Liora stood again, Echo pressing close to her leg. Truth didn't roar that morning. It simply refused to stay buried. Midnight hung over the city like smoke. The rain hadn't stopped since the raid, tapping steady against the cracked windows of an old newsroom in East Ravenport. Inside, dust floated in the amber light of a single desk lamp. Stacks of outdated monitors lined the walls, wires snaking across the floor like roots. Detective Liora Hayes, now former, sat across from investigative journalist Marisol Vega, a name whispered in underground forums, blacklisted by half the networks that once praised her. Keon sat nearby, pale but steady, clutching his battered camera bag. Echo lay near the door, head on his paws, eyes fixed on the street beyond the window. "You're sure the data's clean?" Marisol asked, tapping the USB drive. "It's the raw footage," Keon said. "Time-stamped, geo-locked, and mirrored. If someone wipes one, 5 more copies survive." Marisol smiled faintly. "Good, because what you have here isn't just a story. It's a war." Liora leaned forward, her reflection shimmering in the lamplight. "You've seen this before, haven't you?" Marisol nodded slowly. "Pieces of it. Missing reports, transport permits that don't match manifests." But this, she gestured at the screen. This connects every dot they've spent years hiding. On the monitor glowed a map of the United States. Red lines spidered across state borders, linking ports, storage facilities, and private logistics companies. At the center, blinking faintly, was Ravenport. There are at least 8 states tied to the movement, Marisol said quietly, each claiming they're just temporary housing for minors. Federal contracts disguised as humanitarian relief. But it's all the same pattern. Children moved like shipments, under the same carriers that supply the government. Keon rubbed his face. So they're not just criminals. They're partners. Exactly, Marisol replied. You didn't stumble into corruption. You stepped on a national vein. For a long moment, the only sound was rain. Leora's eyes traced the web of red lines, each one a road that someone had never come back from. If we publish this, they'll bury us. Marisol met her gaze. Then we don't publish. We release. Once it's out, no one can kill it. Echo lifted his head, ears twitching. A low growl vibrated in his chest. Liora frowned. What is it, boy? The lights flickered once, twice. Then the monitors went black. Keon cursed, reaching for his phone. Power grid's fine. This is targeted. Marisol's expression hardened. She moved to a cabinet, pulling out a small portable drive. They found us faster than I thought. Outside headlights slid across the window, 2, then 4, stopping in formation across the street. Government car? Keon asked. Private security, Liora said, drawing her sidearm by reflex, then remembering she no longer carried one. She clenched her empty hand. Echo, stay close. From the ceiling vent came a faint click. Echo's growl deepened. Liora reached up and pried open the grill. Inside was a tiny black disc, still blinking red, a transmitter. She held it up. The sound it emitted was unmistakable. Tap, 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 pause. Tap, 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 5 beats. The same pattern Luna had used. Her stomach dropped. They're marking us. The same signal flipped. Keon backed toward the rear exit. We've got to move now. Marisol shoved the portable drive into Leora's hand. This is everything. Contracts, flight logs, encrypted memos. Keep it safe. No, Liora said. She knelt beside Echo, unclipped his vest, and slid the drive into a small pouch beneath the collar. He'll carry it. No tracker, no heat signature. Marisol grabbed her coat. If they find us, they won't, Liora interrupted. Her voice was low, calm, certain. They'll be too busy chasing ghosts. The lights outside flared brighter, engines starting, tires crunching wet gravel. Liora opened the back door, rain and wind rushing in. Go, Echo! The dog bounded into the dark, vanishing between alley shadows. Keon looked at her. What now? Liora exhaled. Now we follow the truth, on foot if we have to. Behind them, boots hit the front steps. The old newsroom shook with the weight of pursuit. As they slipped into the night, Liora glanced once toward the road where Echo had disappeared. The truth had to travel, on 4 paws, through the dark toward the light. Fog swallowed the streets of Ravenport like smoke from an old wound. Neon lights flickered through the mist, stretching long shadows that had no owners. Somewhere in that maze of rain and silence, Detective Liora Hayes ran for her life. Boots splashed through puddles. Tires screeched behind her. A black SUV's headlights carved through the alley, slicing across the red bricks like knives. Keon, left! She shouted. Keon darted toward a side street, clutching his shoulder where a bullet had grazed him. The camera bag still hung from his neck, empty now, but symbolic, like a badge they refused to surrender. Echo wasn't with them. Not yet. He'd been sent ahead, carrying the drive beneath his collar, the only proof of everything they'd uncovered. Go. Get to the dock! Liora yelled. Keon nodded, vanishing into the fog. Liora turned, firing once toward the approaching lights. The bullet shattered a headlamp. The vehicle swerved, grinding metal against the wall. She ran. Her lungs burned, breath tearing through the cold air. Behind her, doors slammed, men shouted, radios crackled. The city she'd once sworn to protect was hunting her like a fugitive. At the edge of the industrial district, She ducked into an abandoned warehouse, the same scent of rust and oil, ghosts of the place where it all began. Keon stumbled in moments later, panting. Lost them for now. Liora checked the windows. No, you delayed them. That's not the same. He laughed weakly. You've got to celebrate the small wins, Hayes. Lightning flashed outside. In that white burst, Echo appeared in the doorway, drenched, limping, mud splattered up to his chest. Liora dropped to her knees instantly. Hey, come here! The dog padded forward, tail flicking once. The USB drive still hung beneath his collar, slick with rain but intact. You made it, she whispered. Good boy. Echo pressed his head against her shoulder, trembling, not from fear but exhaustion. Keon checked his phone. Signal's dead. They're jamming everything within 2 miles. Marisol's gone dark. Liora stared at the puddle forming near her boot, rain leaking through the cracked roof. They don't just want the footage, she murmured. They want us erased from the record, clean, simple, like we were never born. A distant engine rumbled. Headlights swept across the warehouse windows. They found us. Keon reached for his camera, the instinct of a journalist stronger than his survival reflex. We get out, we tell it ourselves. Otherwise they win, Liora nodded. Then we make them chase noise. She cracked a flare, threw it toward the far end of the building. The red glow bathed the steel beams in bloodlight. As the first shots rang out, she pulled Keon toward the service hatch. Echo followed, growling deep. Bullets tore through the walls, sparks ricocheting like angry insects. Liora pushed Keon down a metal stairwell, covering their retreat with return fire. Keep moving! Keon stumbled, hit the ground hard. I'm fine, just a graze. But she saw the blood. Dark, steady. Too much! Echo barked once, sharp and urgent, tugging at Keon's sleeve as if demanding he stand. They reached the drainage tunnel behind the warehouse. The echo of water filled the air, steady, endless. This way, Liora said, crouching low. The tunnel was half flooded, the smell of salt and metal choking. Above them, footsteps pounded. Flashlights danced across the grate. Echo dove first into the current, swimming strong despite his wound. Liora followed, dragging Keon by the arm. The tunnel spat them out near the docks, waves slapping against concrete. The sky was black except for the glow of Ravenport's skyline, distant and indifferent. Keon collapsed beside a pile of driftwood, gasping. Tell me we're free. Liora looked back at the city, the place that once called her protector. Free? She said quietly. Not yet. But we're louder than silence now. Echo stood beside her, staring at the lights that hunted them. His tail lifted once, defiant. When truth becomes a target, every heartbeat is evidence. The sky over Ravenport bled gray and gold as dawn broke. The rain hadn't stopped. It only softened, a whisper instead of a scream. Inside an abandoned boathouse by the bay, Liora Hayes finally slept for the first time in 36 hours. When she woke, the world was wrong. The door stood half open, the wind pushing it back and forth with a slow, wooden moan. Keon was still asleep, head resting against his backpack, but the space beside them was empty. Echo? No sound, no tags jingling, no paws against the floorboards. Her pulse spiked. She stood scanning the wet footprints on the dock. There, drag marks, thin lines cutting through puddles, fading into the mist. And blood. Small smeared dots leading toward the main road. Keon! He woke instantly, eyes wild. What happened? They took him. He checked his laptop, fumbling through code. If his collar tag's still live, I can find the signal. The screen flickered. A pulsing green dot blinked somewhere north of the harbor. Old naval docks. Zone 9. Liora grabbed her gear. Then that's where I'm going. Keon caught her arm. You're running on fumes. If it's a trap, it's already a trap, she said. They didn't just take the dog. They took the truth. By the time she reached Zone 9, the rain had turned into fog thick enough to erase the horizon. The skeletal remains of ships loomed in silence. Rusted hulls, broken cranes, shadows of another era. Her comms hissed once, then came Marisol's voice. Faint, fragmented through interference. Liora, you were right. They took the drive. They took Echo. Federal Task Unit, no insignia. They're scrubbing everything. Where are you? Off-grid. Don't trust anyone. The line went dead. Liora pocketed the device, jaw tightening. Somewhere beyond the fog, a generator hummed, steady as a heartbeat. She followed it through the maze of shipping containers until she saw the glow of floodlights cutting through the mist. And then she heard it. A whine. Weak, muffled. She edged closer, crouching behind a stack of barrels. Through a slit in the metal, she saw Echo, bound with wire, collar stripped, breathing hard but alive. Beside him, a man knelt, combat boots, black gloves, radio on his shoulder. He turned a small object in his hand. The USB drive glinting under the lamp. Where's the handler? Another voice came from the dark. Doesn't matter, the first man said. We wiped this, it's over. No one will ever prove a thing. Liora moved before the thought finished forming. 2 steps, 1 breath, trigger squeeze. The shot cracked the air. The man with the drive fell without a sound. The second shouted, spinning with his rifle. Liora fired again. Sparks exploded from the container wall, metal screaming as bullets ricocheted. She dove behind cover, returning fire. Echo barked, a raw, hoarse sound, but he was moving, twisting, biting through the restraint with what strength he had left. Then silence. Only the hum of the generator and the distant crash of waves. Liora emerged slowly, weapon raised. The men were down. Smoke curled upward from the barrel of her gun. She dropped beside Echo, cutting the last wire. I've got you, buddy, he whimpered softly, pressing his nose to her palm. Blood streaked his fur, but his eyes, those amber eyes, were still fierce, still alive. You held on, she whispered. You didn't let them win. She reached for the USB, still warm in her hand. Let's finish this. That's when she heard engines, dozens. Headlights cut through the fog as black vans poured into the dockyard, tires hissing on wet concrete. A voice over loudspeaker. Detective Hayes, you are under arrest for obstruction and armed assault. Liora laughed once, bitter and breathless. Arrested for telling the truth. Classic. She looked at Echo. Time to jump, partner. She ran. Bullets chased her down the pier, striking sparks from metal railings. Ahead, the water roared, black, endless, alive. At the edge, she turned once, meeting the storm head-on. Then she wrapped her arm around Echo and dove. The sea swallowed them both. She didn't dive to escape. She dove to deliver the truth. The sea didn't keep them. It never keeps the innocent. It sends them back, battered but breathing. Just before dawn, a fishing boat drifted along the southern bay of Ravenport. Its old engine coughed through the fog as the captain squinted toward something floating in the waves. 2 shapes. One small, one larger, over there, he shouted. The crew pulled them aboard. A woman, face pale and bruised, and a German shepherd, limp but alive. Salt water streamed from his fur as he coughed weakly, claws scraping the deck. The woman's hand never released the chain around his neck. When they tried to separate them, her fingers locked tighter, as if her soul still clung to the weight of his life. Get her to the clinic! The wind howled through the rigging, carrying the sound away. Liora woke to the sterile hum of a coastal medical station. The ceiling lights were too bright. Her throat burned with salt. Her first instinct wasn't to move, just to listen. Then she heard it, a faint chuff from the next room. A heartbeat she knew better than her own. She stumbled from the bed, IV trailing behind her. Echo lay on a blanket, chest rising and falling, slow but steady, bandaged, safe. Hey, partner, she whispered, kneeling beside him. You made it. He opened his eyes. One slow blink. Tail flicked once. That was enough. On the small table near the bed sat a sealed plastic pouch, the USB drive, still there. Still intact. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. A voice from behind startled her. You're not supposed to be awake yet. Marisol Vega stood in the doorway, soaked in rain, exhaustion carved deep into her face. Behind her was Keon, arm in a sling holding a laptop that was still uploading files. Liora exhaled. You're alive. Barely, Keon said with a crooked smile. But we did it. It's out. The screen glowed between them. Thousands of shares. Headlines exploding across every network. Ravenport trafficking operation. Exposed. Federal officials implicated in multi-state child exploitation network. It spread faster than any of them could have imagined. The truth. Unfiltered and unstoppable. They can't bury it now, Marisol said quietly. Liora looked down at Echo, running a hand through his fur. He carried it out when we couldn't. Hours later, the clinic became a fortress of flashing cameras and news vans. Reporters swarmed the entrance, shouting questions over one another. "Detective Hayes! Is it true you defied a federal order? Do you regret going rogue? What do you want to say to the department?" Liora stepped out slowly, raincoat drawn tight, Echo walking beside her, steady and proud despite the bandages. His old canine badge hung loosely from his collar, a small symbol dulled by salt, shining in the morning light. She stopped at the microphone stand the way she used to stop at a crime scene. Measured, calm, eyes cutting through the noise. "You can't control what's already free," she said simply. "The truth's not ours to keep. It belongs to everyone it almost destroyed." Cameras flashed. Echo barked once, deep and resonant, as if to punctuate her words. That night, the ocean was quiet again. Liora stood on the pier, coat flapping in the wind. The horizon glowed faintly with the city lights, the same city that once tried to erase her. Echo sat beside her, gaze fixed on the waves. She looked down at him. "You ready for what's next?" He tilted his head, as if listening for something far away. "Yeah," she murmured. "Me too." The tide rolled in, pulling the moonlight across their faces. Truth doesn't drown. It waits until someone dares to pull it up again. Morning draped Ravenport in a quiet kind of gold, the color of endings and beginnings. The waves rolled gentle against the docks now, carrying the faint hum of a city forced to remember what it had tried to forget. Inside a small press room overlooking the harbor, Detective Liora Hayes sat before a microphone that wasn't attached to any network. It was Keon's, rebuilt, rewired, reborn as their own. The screen in front of her glowed with a live stream counter ticking upward. 312,000 watching. She took a breath, glanced at Echo lying near her feet, and began. "3 weeks ago," she said softly, "the people you trusted to protect you told me to stop asking questions. They said some stories were too dangerous to tell, that the system would handle it, but I learned something. Systems don't seek justice. People do, one person, one truth at a time." She paused, eyes lifting toward the camera. "The footage you've seen, the children, the warehouses, the silence, it wasn't an accident. It was design. But it's not about one city or one woman. It's about what happens when we stop looking away." Echo stirred, tail brushing against the floor. The sound filled the quiet between her words like punctuation made of trust. "I was stripped of my badge, but that badge never made me a protector. This did." She reached down, touching Echo's head. He listened when no one else did. He heard what was buried in plain sight. And he never stopped. The comments streamed by. "Thank you, we see you," for Luna, for all of them. Liora smiled faintly. "If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Keep sharing it. Speak their names. Every click, every share, every voice. It's one more brick against the walls they build to hide the truth." She leaned closer, her tone quiet, intimate, almost a whisper. "Because justice isn't noise, it's persistence." Later, when the broadcast ended, she stepped outside into the thin sunlight. The crowd that had gathered in the square below erupted in applause. Not the loud, mindless kind, but the kind that breaks like a wave against the heart. Marisol stood by the edge of the platform, camera slung over her shoulder. "You realize you just started a movement, right?" Liora shook her head. "No. We just finished what they started when they thought no one would notice." Keon lifted his camera. "Smile, detective. The world finally knows your name," she laughed quietly. "I'd rather they remember his—" Echo barked, as if in agreement, before sitting tall, chest proud, eyes bright under the morning light. Marisol hit record. "For the archive," she said. "The moment the truth came home." As the crowd dispersed, Liora and Echo walked down toward the pier. Children played along the shoreline, safe, loud, alive. One of them, Luna, spotted her and ran forward. "Miss Hayes!" Liora knelt as Luna hugged Echo, laughing when his tongue brushed her cheek. "He still remembers you," Liora said. Luna grinned. "I remember him too. He's the reason I can sleep without being scared." Leora's throat tightened. "Then that means he did his job." She stood, watching the girl rejoin her family, the sound of their laughter carried by the wind. The horizon shimmered where the sky met the water. Echo pressed close to her side. "You ready to rest, partner?" He tilted his head, and for the briefest second, Liora swore she saw something in his eyes. Peace. If this story reached you, don't let it stop here. Share it, speak it. Remember it. And if you believe truth still matters, subscribe, support, and stand with us at Black Voices Justice. Because somewhere out there, another voice is still waiting to be heard.